are talking about the Hexblade Warlock today. And with me, I actually have Ross Leiser with Outlanders Adventure Press. Productions, sorry. Friend of the channel.
It's okay, mistake people make.
You've been here before. We talked about your Accursed class, and I brought you and Benjamin on for the class feature variants video. I really enjoyed our talks about all the different subclasses, and this one in particular is one that I know is popular enough with Critical Role, Ford being a Hexblade, and I've had Hexblades at my table before, and I honestly kind of feel like the Hexblade is a subclass that a lot of people tend to go to whenever they're wanting the sword and sorcery kind of character, and I've kind of had my irks with it, where I kind of feel like that might not be really, how do I put it? The Hexblade just doesn't seem like it's making the kind of like gish that I have in mind. It's an interesting gish, but then you and I started talking about it a little bit, and I think you really you brought forth one of the issues that I didn't really know I had with it. But before we get into the opinionated side of it, let's just talk about the features, go through it. I'm sure you've seen in some of the videos I do a pretty comprehensive breakdown of like spell lists and all the features, talk about ways in which people might not have thought about how they can use them. And now that I've got you on here, you can tell me of ways that I didn't know they could be used.
Well, I'm actually really happy you asked me to do this, because I'm not sure most people know this, but my first ever character when I started playing D&D in 4th edition was a Tiefling Hexblade.
Oh, yeah?
So I, of course, was gravitated straight toward the concept. I've always loved the sword and sorcery. I've always loved the gish. People who've seen my work, especially in like the Complete Martialist Handbook, Complete Devout Handbook, knows I love mixing weapons and magic. So This is like totally my wheelhouse, something that I love. And I love a lot of the concepts that went into it and the stated design goals of making a subclass that makes Pact of the Blade viable. So I love that when they were going for that. And just like you, I have some reservations, but overall it is a very fun subclass. And so I'm pretty happy to be here to just kind of talk about all the cool things you can do with it.
So, starting out with it, oh, is it my coffee? Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, love you.
Hello.
Oh, that's Ross's hey.
Hi.
So, the Hexblade, you made your pact with a mysterious entity from the Shadowfell, a force that manifests in sentient magic weapons carved from the stuff of shadow. The mighty sword Black Razor is the most notable of these weapons, which have been spread across the multiverse over the ages. The shadowy force behind these weapons can offer power to warlocks who form pacts with it. Many Hexblade warlocks create weapons that emulate those formed in the Shadowfell. Others forego such arms, content to weave the dark magic of the plane into their spellcasting. Because the Raven Queen is known to have forged the first of these weapons, many sages speculate that she and the Force are one, and that the weapons, along with Hexblade warlocks, are tools she uses to manipulate events on the material plane to her inscrutable ends. Okay, so with the flavor text, that's the one thing I really thought was a little weird to kick it off. I'm not really sure that this class. I think a lot of people look at the Hexblade and think that this is going to be my gish. This is the way that I do the gish. This is what they're doing, and it's like, no, not really. And the subclass's features kind of trap you into believing that that's the way you're going to go, at least for this first level. So starting out with it, I do have my color system. I've explained it before in past videos. I'm going to put a little graphic up now. Anyways, so starting out with their expanded spell list, first level spells are getting Shield and Wrathful Smite. Shield, one of the best magic casting defensive spells in the game, if not the best defensive spell for mages in the game.
Excellent bang for buck, just crazy.
Yeah, and like it's, I would expect it to be here. Shield, if you don't know, an invisible barrier of magic force appears and protects you until the start of your next turn. You have a +5 bonus to AC, including against the triggering attack. and you take no damage from magic missile. So, yeah. I mean, use your reaction. Get +5 bonus to your AC. Shield's crazy, crazy strong.
What's also interesting about it on this subclass in particular is that it's actually way better here than it would be on your standard sorcerer or wizard. Because at first level, you're also getting proficiency with medium armor and shields.
Yeah.
So your starting AC is already higher, and so everything above that threshold is just even more incremental value. So it's not unreasonable that your shield spell could give your AC 23 at level 1 with this.
Then go Warforged to make it 24. So.
But yeah, it is nuts.
Yeah.
Just how good this is on this subclass too.
So moving on to the next one, Wrathful Smite. The next time you hit with a melee attack during the spell's duration, your attack deals an extra 1d6 psychic damage. Additionally, if the target is a creature, it must make a wisdom saving throw or be frightened of you until the spell ends. As an action, the creature can make a wisdom check against your spell save DC to steal its resolve and end this spell. So I actually rated this one as blue, which I feel like it's not that it's a bad spell by any means. It's strong. 1d6 psychic damage on top of the weapon's attack, frightened condition. Do you know why I feel like Wrathful Smite just shouldn't be purple? Like I have some reservations about it, and I'm not sure.
There's a couple reasons it shouldn't be purple for this subclass. Don't get me wrong. Fear, especially accompanied with damage, is a very powerful effect. Especially because you're pretty much guaranteeing extra damage because you're using a bonus action, you get to attack. You get all that, then they have the potential to fear them. It's kind of like a better cause fear in many ways. The problem lies in that it's competing for your concentration. And for Warlock, that is incredibly relevant because Hex requires concentration.
Well, and for some reason to me, it's like these one and done spells for Warlock, because your spell slots are so, like, they're more precious. That in particular just feels like, on Warlock, just feels kind of like a little bit of a waste.
Well, I mean, it's a waste at higher levels, kind of like Shield does not scale with spell slot level, so it gets worse at higher levels too, because you're spending a 5th level spell slot for +5 to AC, and that feels much worse.
Yeah.
But at early levels, keep in mind, these are not spells that you always have. They're just added to your spell list.
Right.
So as they become less relevant, you can always replace them later. Which is why I think at first level, these are very, very good.
That's a good point. Okay. So, moving on to their second level spells that they get, Blur and Branding Smite. Blur, I've rated as purple.
Yeah.
Immediately going into concentration here for 1 minute. Blur, your body becomes blurred, shifting and wavering to all who can see you. For the duration, any creature has disadvantage on attack rolls against you. An attacker is immune to this effect if it doesn't rely on sight, such as with blind sight, or it can see through illusions, as with true sight. I mean, for a minute, yes, it requires concentration, but I mean, honestly, with things having disadvantage on attack rolls against you, this is so fantastic as a defensive feature.
Oh, no doubt.
I love Blur. I don't know why I've never really picked it up on a character before. I guess I just don't play a lot of arcane casters, but...
I mean, there's also the thing that most of them are not really attempting to tank, whereas Blur is just a phenomenal spell for tanks. Because you can just get right up in there in the fray and reduce the chances of being hit by an immense value. And that's actually really good on this, because this is already, as we kind of discussed, the tankiest of the Warlocks.
Yeah.
Because you get that armor and shield proficiency, so it just synergizes so well. And if you're in melee range, that just getting attacked by pretty much everything, this spell lets you be the party tank as a Warlock.
Yeah, I guess that's... So, Blur, I guess Paladin and Ranger don't get Blur, or does Ranger get Blur?
I'm actually not sure. I need to check on that.
Yeah, no, as it turns out, it's just Sorcerer, Wizard, Hexblade, Circle of the Land Druid, Genie, the Genie Warlock, and then Artificer. So, no, none of the mainstay tanks, like Paladin or, like, possibly Ranger, really get access to Blur. That's weird. It feels like such a Ranger
Battlesmith
spell.
Artificer could probably make really good use of them.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, it's weird. It feels like such a Ranger spell, too.
Well, here's the thing. Ranger doesn't really get access to any illusion spells, really.
Right.
It's just that one feature they get, that in that Unearthed Arcana alternate class features thing.
Yeah.
That gives them even a slightly illusory effects. But I guess that's why thematically they didn't put it on the list. But you're right, it does feel like a very Ranger spell.
So next up, they get Branding Smite. Branding Smite, I've given blue again. I think it's just kind of that pattern with all the smites up to Staggering Smite for me. The next time you hit a creature with a weapon attack before the spell ends, the weapon gleams with Astral Radiance as you strike. The attack deals an extra 2d6 radiant damage to the target, which becomes visible if it's invisible, and the target sheds dim light in a 5-foot radius and can't become invisible until the spell ends. Again, it's like these one-and-done things with the smites, where, like, I think specifically for the Warlock, where, like we were saying, their spell slots are precious. And something like this, the 2d6, on top of the damage you do, I think especially because the bound weapon that you get can only be a one-handed weapon. Like, you can't take a longsword, you can take a longsword, you can't use it with a versatile property.
Well, you can use it with a versatile property, because it doesn't have the two-handed property, is the only caveat.
Okay. All right.
And if you are taking Pack of the Blade, then you can do things like pole arms and great swords and all that. That's the incentive to take Pack of the Blade with this.
I really feel like with Branding Smite, you're just, like, I don't know, that 2d6 looks really good whenever it's stacked on top of a Great Axe, you know, but, like, I think whenever we start talking about, like, lesser weapons, it's like, yeah, well...
Here's the thing I consider with Branding Smite. It is one of 2 spells in the entirety of the edition that expose invisible creatures to the entire party.
Really?
Only this and Fairy Fire have that effect. And this is a Fairy Fire for a single target, which is usually the only time that it's really going to be relevant against an invisible creature,
right,
accompanied by 2d6 radiant damage. So for that niche use, it is very, very strong, because invisible stalkers are scary.
Yeah.
That's but other than that, I agree with your points.
Yeah, that's one of those monsters that, like, I didn't really look too much into whenever I was first starting to, like, design adventures. And then I just came across them, like, last year, and I was like, oh my god, these guys are terrifying.
Constant advantage on attacks, constant disadvantage on attacks against them, unless you have, like, blind sight or true sight. It's really scary.
Right? So the next one I've got up here, Blink. The reason I'm actually giving Blink blue is simply because it's unreliable.
You can't choose.
Yeah.
That's what I've always disliked about Blink.
It's weird to me because I'm like, it feels like it should be an enhancement to Misty Step. Like, just by the naming convention and, like, what we know Blink to be labeled as in a lot of, like, fantasy games. Blink, especially, like, playing WoW or something like that, Blink is, like, that is the Misty Step of WoW. However, Blink here, or, hell, we even think of the Blink dog in D&D. But here, so you roll a d20 at the end of each of your turns for the duration of the spell. On a roll of 11 or higher, you vanish from your current plane of existence and appear in the ethereal plane. The spell fails, and the casting is wasted if you were already on that plane. At the start of your next turn, and when the spell ends, if you're on the ethereal plane, you return to an unoccupied space of your choice that you can see within 10 feet of the space you vanished from. If no unoccupied space is available within that range, you appear in the nearest unoccupied space, chosen at random if more than one space is equally near. You dismiss the spell as an action, or you can dismiss the spell as an action. While on the ethereal plane, it gets into, like, how you perceive from the outside. On a roll of 11 or higher, you cast this, so you have a 50-50 shot of this working for you. I don't know why that feels like that would even be necessary to... why would you take this while Misty Step is available?
Well, the one advantage is that it has a 50% chance of making you completely untargetable to anything but ghosts until the start of your next turn.
Okay.
But in addition to that, it does not require concentration. So those are the two major advantages of it. Yes, until the start of your next turn, it also makes allies unable to target you, but it makes enemies completely unable to target you if you do blink out, unless it's something that can access the ethereal plane. So I think that's why it's random, because otherwise it would be insanely good, and I kind of wish it were a higher level spell, so it could be that good. We've already talked about it. It's not my favorite spell. I don't like the randomness. I like knowing I'm getting value for what I'm casting, which is why Blur is so good. But it does have that advantage of no concentration required. So you can have Hex up or whatever other concentration spell you want up for your Warlock.
That's okay, yeah. So I feel blue should probably stay there. Elemental Weapon, given it purple, I think that Elemental Weapon is such a good spell.
I love this spell so much.
Especially for the fact that vulnerability is so strong. I play with the rule. I don't know if you saw Benjamin's tweet about this. I think it was like a few months ago, where he was talking about how vulnerability and crit damage are backwards, and we should be using double damage die or double the damage for crit attacks, and add an additional die of damage for vulnerability. I thought,
that makes sense to me.
That is so, and I think that a lot of monsters in the monster manual would have been freed up for vulnerability if they would have gone with that.
Because vulnerability is a fun thing to play around. Like, learning about a creature's weaknesses and then exploiting them is much more fun than learning about what a creature's resistant to and trying to work around
that. Right. So with Elemental Weapon, what this spell can do: a non-magical weapon you touch becomes a magic weapon. Choose one of the following damage types: acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder. For the duration, so 1 hour, it does require concentration. The weapon has a +1 bonus to attack rolls and deals an extra 1d4 damage of the chosen type when it hits. On top of that, at higher levels, when you cast a spell using a spell slot of 5th or 6th level, so Warlock's only going to be able to get this up to 5th. Well, no, they get the... what's the...
Oh, the Arcanums can only be used for the spells they're chosen for. That's the one issue. So they really only can cast this at 5th level.
Okay. So you can get this up to a +2 weapon with extra damage die increasing to 2d4. Things I like about Elemental Weapon, the versatility. You're getting 5 different damage types that you can choose from. That not only is it making your weapon magical, so you can now hit ghosts, you can now hit many of the creatures that have resistance to non-magical weapon attacks. You're getting a little perk of acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage with the +1 bonus to attack rolls. Like, I love this. It's stronger than a +1 weapon because there's a chance that you can roll a 4 on that d4. That Elemental Weapon is fantastic.
And since it affects the weapon damage, if you crit, it actually doubles the die on it too. Which is pretty fantastic. But not only do I love the mechanics of this, I love the visual. Because you have this weapon, and it used to be that only paladins had access to this. But now that this has it, you have this eldritch, probably horrifying looking weapon, especially if you take Pact of the Boon, and you're just running your hand along that blade, imbuing it with like fire or lightning or thunder or acid. It's such a cool visual. Yeah. It feels so good to cast it and just have it up. I love this spell so much.
Yeah, it's the preeminent Gish spell, really. It's like whenever you're thinking sword and sorcery, Elemental Weapon is like the go-to. Like, yeah, that's what Mm-hmm. Okay, so Elemental Weapon, purple. Phantasmal Killer. So you tap into the nightmares of a creature that you can see within range and create an illusory manifestation of its deepest fears, visible only to that creature. The target must make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, the target becomes frightened for the duration, so up to 1 minute. At the end of each of the target's turns before the spell ends, the target must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or take 4d10 psychic damage. On a successful save, the spell ends. So 10 rounds, potential of 40d10 psychic damage. Despite that being somewhat unrealistic, that is the potential damage that we're talking about with this spell.
Yeah.
Phantasmal Killer is amazing. I love this spell. Not only does it inflict the frightened condition, but this is a consistent source of damage as long as you're able to maintain that concentration.
Not only is it a source of the frightened condition, but it doesn't specify that it's only frightened of you. It's just frightened. It has disadvantage on attacks against everything.
That's right.
Even if you are not in its line of sight. So it has that insane effect on top of this potential 4d10 damage every round.
Ooh. Oh, I did not even think about that.
If a boss does not have immunity to the frightened condition, you can annihilate an entire boss encounter with this one spell.
Oh, that just makes me want to go like, wait, can Oath of Conquest Paladin get Phantasmal Killer? Oh, that's...
we should probably check that, because that would be scary. I mean, that subclass is already really, really good.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they can. They had to know that would have just broken that subclass.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
God, but... Oh, I want it so bad. I don't think there's even a way.
I mean, it's kind of like how I want Elemental Weapon on every single arcane spellcaster, but it's normally only available to Paladin.
So your spell slot level gets up to, okay. So for 7th level, ooh, that is not unreasonable that you can dip Hexblade and then go into Conquest Paladin. I mean, that's 7 levels. That's a heavy investment, but for Phantasmal Killer synergizing with Oath of Conquest, that's nice. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so Phantasmal Killer, purple, absolutely. I think that spell's incredible. So Staggering Smite, 4th level. The next time you hit a creature with a melee weapon attack during the spell's duration, your weapon pierces both body and mind, and the attack deals an extra 46 psychic damage to the target. The target must make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, it has disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks, and can't take reactions until the end of its next turn. So I actually gave this one purple. I think of all the smites, Staggering Smite is my second favorite, probably next to the next one we're going to talk about, which is Vanishing Smite. Vanishing Smite is awesome. I just love the narration of that spell. Staggering Smite, I rated it purple. I'm almost likely to bring it down to blue, because, again, it's a one-and-done thing, and the fact that the disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks and can't take reactions, that's amazing setup. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. That would be amazing setup if this applied to saving throws.
It would be way too good if it applied to saving throws.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, if it just got rid of attack rolls and ability checks and just did saving throws, is that still way too good?
I think so, because especially since it's until the end of the creature's next turn, that gives a lot of potential for allies to abuse the crap out of that disadvantage on saving throws with really important effects. Disadvantage on saving throws has to be a very high level ability, in my opinion. Just because it is so potentially powerful.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I get the... Amelia, go on. Currently no doorknob on the studio door because the old one broke off, so...
Oh, no!
Yeah, no, it just stopped, like, the knob actually stopped, like, engaging with the lock mechanism. So, like, it wouldn't open ever. So if you got stuck in this room while the door was shut, it was going to take, like, a 2-man crew to get you out of here.
Oh, no!
Yeah. So, we're getting...
I just want to say one more thing about Staggering Smite before we move on. The one thing I don't particularly like about this spell is that unlike Wrathful Smite, unlike Branding Smite, which have ongoing effects, that actually do last for their full duration. Staggering Smite, once you hit with it, only lasts until I think it's the end of the target's next turn, if I'm saying that right.
Yep.
And just so you're blowing a 4th level spell slot, and yeah, it's some decent damage. It's a very good effect for that one turn. And it does also release your need for concentration after that one turn. But it doesn't have that same ongoing effect that the other smites do.
Right. I'm going to go on ahead and demote that to blue. Moving on, Vanishing Smite. So I've given this one purple. This is, in my opinion, the best of the smites. This is just killer. And
the fact that you get access to this 8 levels earlier than a paladin would is insane.
Right. So, what is Vanishing Smite? The next time you hit a creature with a weapon attack before the spell ends, your weapon crackles with force, and the attack deals an extra 5d10 force damage to the target. So, first off, right there, force damage. Force damage is so valuable.
There's only one creature I'm aware of in the entire DMG that's immune to it.
Really?
The Helmed Horror is immune to force damage.
How weird. Huh.
Right?
That's bizarre. Okay, so yeah, force damage. Whenever you're talking about things like classes getting or races getting access to a damage resistance, and you're looking at that's part of why Tiefling is so good. Tiefling gets resistance to fire damage. Fire damage is incredibly common. Grung or Yuan Ti, a lot of people look at them and think magic resistance is the reason why Yuan Ti is absurdly OP. It's well, yes, it also has to deal with the fact that they are immune to poison damage. Poison damage is
so common at early levels.
Yeah. Same thing with Grung. It's that's part of why they're just valued so high. So those are very common damage resistances, or damage occurrences, I guess I should say. Force damage is a damage type that does not have a whole lot of immunities or resistances like we were just saying. So being able to get that and deal 5d10 of it on top of your weapon attack is killer.
I mean, even that, for a 5th level spell slot, is kind of worth it. But then you also get the next part of Vanishing Smite.
Additionally, if this attack reduces the target to 50 hit points or fewer, you banish it. If the target is native to a different plane of existence than the one that you're on, the target disappears, returning to its home plane. If the target is native to a plane that you're on, the creature vanishes into a harmless demi-plane. While there, the target is incapacitated. It remains there until the spell ends, at which point the target reappears in the space it left, or in the nearest unoccupied space, if that space is occupied. So, correct me if I'm wrong. If you banish it to its plane of existence, it doesn't come back at the end of the duration, correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
So, you go up against anything conjured from the 9 hells, this ends a fight if it's at 50 hit points or fewer. That effect.
But you're getting 5d10 plus the weapon damage plus whatever other damage stacking bonuses you're doing to get that creature to below 50 hit points in this shot.
This is absolutely just, yes, it's everything that you're really wanting out of it. I mean,
basically a power word at that point.
Yeah.
If you really think
about it. I love Vanishing Smite. I think that it's one of the paladin spells that I look at and I'm that is so absolutely paladin, and it's glorious. I love Vanishing Smite.
And here's another thing about it that I just adore.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say your DM does the standard plot structure of once your boss gets down to a certain hit point threshold, it activates another stage. Maybe summons a whole bunch of new minions. And those new minions are now a problem because they're hitting you while you're focused on the boss. You can Vanishing Smite the boss away, deal with the minions, and wait for it to come back from the demi-plane. It's just another use of this unbelievably great spell.
Yeah. Oh my god. Okay. Vanishing Smite. Lovely. Just, And, honestly, I was thinking it was so paladin. It actually makes sense here on Warlock. It feels kind of in flavor. Okay. Okay. I just love Vanishing Smite. Cone of Cold. So, Cone of Cold, the only reason I've given it blue here is I'm just kind of curious, why is this on Hexblade?
I think they were trying really hard to come up with a second, fifth level that makes even a little bit of sense with the lore. And I don't know why they did this, because they were stated that the reason that these expanded spells and additional spell lists that these subclasses have gotten, you have to always put them from spells from the PHB, because that's the only one that people are expected to own.
Yeah.
However, they easily could have put a spell from this book into this spell list, because it's very hard to own this subclass without owning the spells that come in Xanathar. And there's like spells like Enervation and just really cool fifth levels that are in this book that I think would work a lot better here than Cone of Cold. But I think they were really just giving themselves that arbitrary restriction, and of all the things at fifth level in the PHB, this just, I guess, made the most sense to them.
That's one of those arbitrations that they've done with design that I'm just like, I guess I get it, because you're not trying to make the game super expensive for people. However, I don't think there's ever been a time where D&D has been as accessible as it is right now. And quite honestly, saying that because a spell doesn't exist within a certain book has absolutely limited the design potential, I feel like, for a lot of subclasses moving forward. And I would really love to see Wizards in the future abandon that policy, especially like in cases like this where you're saying, if you own this book, you own these spells, you own this subclass, so why not, let's free up some design room there.
And they've even shown some tendency to reprint relevant spells.
Yes.
Let's look at the Triton in Volo's Guide to Monsters. Mm-hmm. Or is it Volo's Guide to Everything? Volo's Guide to Monsters. That's the one. They reprinted the Wall of Water spell in that book so they could give it to Triton. They easily could do that for whenever that's relevant.
Yeah.
And also, if they are holding themselves to that PHB restriction, I actually really like the idea of the creation spell for this subclass. If you read the first sentence of the creation spell, it mentions that you are pulling shadow material from the Shadowfell to make solid objects. That is just a flavor win given the lore of this subclass.
Oh, that is nasty. All right. Oh, okay. So yeah, here's what Ross is talking about. I played a Forge Domain cleric for a long time, and I loved creation. Wow, yeah. And I always thought that was a bit of odd text in the spell, but now I'm
they actually bring it back for Illusory Dragon, though. Like, the higher level illusion spells are pulling the shadow stuff, is how they sometimes refer to it,
right,
from the Shadowfell to create physical illusions. And I just think, because of the nature of the lore of the Hexblade, you have made your pact with a mysterious entity from the Shadowfell. It's just so on flavor.
Yeah. Oh. Well, okay, so
that's just me.
Let's let me see here. Actually, since we've done that, let me just read Cone of Cold real quick. A Velocity Cold Air erupts from your hands. Each creature in a 60-foot cone must make a Constitution saving throw. A creature takes 8d8 cold damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. A creature killed by this spell becomes a frozen statue until it thaws. I like the spell. I don't think the Cone of Cold is a terrible spell at all. I just don't really understand
why. And it actually gives this subclass access to AoE, which it sorely lacks otherwise.
Yeah, okay. I guess if we're going for the Gish that has like the elemental weapon, like this might, I guess Branding Smite? No, radiant damage. Okay, I'm gonna stop trying to rationalize Cone of Cold. I like the spell. I'm just not really super sure why it's here on Hexblade. Starting at first level, Hexblade's Curse. I've rated this as purple. And you can't
so strong.
Yeah, you can't currently see it on here.
So strong.
But I've also put some stuff in gray. Gray is something I'm going to use now to indicate that I think that this is potentially problematic in terms of balance for the game. So, starting at first level, you gain the ability to place a Baleful Curse on somebody. As a bonus action, choose one creature you can see within 30 feet of you. The target is cursed for 1 minute. The curse ends early if the target dies, you die, or you are incapacitated. Until the curse ends, you gain the following benefits. So starting off, you gain a bonus to damage rolls against the target. The bonus equals your proficiency bonus. I'll go back through and talk about it. Any attack roll you make against the cursed target is a critical hit on a roll of 19 or 20 on the d20. If the cursed target dies, you regain hit points equal to your Warlock level plus your Charisma modifier, minimum of 1 hit point. You can't use this feature again until you finish a short or long rest. So I have Grade. You gain a bonus to damage rolls against the cursed target. The bonus equals your proficiency bonus. Now, the big problem I have with this is this so highly encourages multi-class dipping. I don't have a problem with multi-classing, but I can't help but feel like this feature is too good of a first level dip to ignore. Like, you're talking... I mean, the fact that it scales with your proficiency bonus instead of a Warlock thing, that is nasty. That is...
What I also find strange is that earlier in this book, they wrote Barbarian subclass, Path of the Storm Herald, that mimics this idea of scaling the proficiency bonus by writing flat number bonuses of scaling. Right. They could have easily done that here and made it based on Warlock levels instead of proficiency bonus.
I'm all for multi-classing. I think that when done right, it can make some really cool concepts. And I mean, there's those of us out there that love like trying to break, the game with different multi-class builds and whatnot. However, this is one of those things that I can't help but look at and think like this was made for people to min-max. So with it scaling with your proficiency bonus, it's not based off of anything that you're going to get based out of this class. I just don't like that as a subclass thing. I don't like that as a subclass mechanic. I like I said, I feel like that is really highly encouraging multi-class dipping, and I'll get off that soapbox. So, second part of this. This is what you cued me into that I thought initially was written the way that you believe it should be intended, and I'm shocked that it's not. Any attack roll that you make against the cursed target is a critical hit on a roll of 19 or 20 on the d20. So, usually, for Champion Fighter to get this, they have to invest 3 levels into Fighter to grab this. The cursed target, now, yes, it's not on all of your attack rolls. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. Yes, it's not on all of your attack rolls because it has to be the target of your curse. But that really doesn't matter whenever the target of your curse is the big bad evil guy. Like, if you're only going against this one target, that part of it's a little inconsequential, especially because this feature refreshes on a short or long rest. The correction that you proposed is the way that I run Hexblade now at my table, and it's that any melee attack roll you make against the cursed target is a critical hit, which I feel is what should be intended with Hexblade being...
I also feel the same way about the first bullet point. I believe it should say you gain a bonus to melee weapon damage rolls.
Yes.
Against the cursed target. But it does not say that. Which is... We'll get more into this later, but this is where I became disappointed with the class, because I loved their stated design goal of make Pact of the Blade relevant.
Yeah.
But by not including the words melee and weapon in this feature, they have just made a feature that's made Eldritch Blast so ridiculously strong that you are outclassing the damage of every other Warlock, just in general.
You take that with Agonizing Blast? And
combined with Hex. This stacks with Hex.
Whew. Oh my god. You
use a bonus action for this one turn, bonus action for Hex the turn after, and then you Eldritch Blast the thing to oblivion.
Oh my god. I did not even think about that.
That's why this is the highest damage and tankiest Warlock in all of the edition.
Okay, that's the kind of thing where I genuinely feel that this needs to be errated. Because that is providing way too much at first level, and it's scaling outside of investing in the class. And then the next part, if the cursed target dies, you regain hit points equal to your warlock level plus your charisma modifier. That I put that in blue.
I don't think this feature needs that.
Yeah, I don't think it. No. Honestly, yeah, it could have just been the first 2 bullet points, and this would have already been absurd. If the cursed target dies, you regain, like, that's, blue, whatever, sure. Hexblade's Curse. Absolutely purple, if not, I think that feature absolutely needs errata to get nerfed pretty hard. And
I fully believe that this is one of the most powerful features in the entire game.
Yeah.
Like, let alone like high-level features, low-level features. I think it is better than some of the high, like 20th level capstone features that classes get.
Well, okay, so, man, even better than you think than Moon Druid?
Well, Moon Druid is very strong, and that's a totally different conversation.
Okay. Yeah, okay, all right. So, Hex Warrior...
But in a 1v1, I think this could take a Moon Druid.
Oh, probably. So, Hex Warrior. At first level, you acquire the training necessary to effectively arm yourself for battle. You gain proficiency with medium armor, shields, and martial weapons. The influence of your patron also allows you to mystically channel your will through a particular weapon. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can touch one weapon that you're proficient with and that lacks the two-handed property. When you attack with that weapon, you can use your charisma modifier instead of strength or dexterity for the attack and damage rolls. The benefit lasts until you finish a long rest. If you later gain the Pact of the Blade feature, this benefit extends to every packed weapon you conjure with that feature, no matter the weapon's type. Again, I think with the multi-classing, this is another thing where, like, because it's given at first level, I'm immediately thinking College of Swords Bard, why would you not dip in to get this? Because you don't care about that Bard capstone. Nobody cares about that Bard capstone. Paladin, like, of course, it's just gonna ignore the entire first part of this. Paladin,
it lets you dump both strength and dexterity for any class that uses heavy armor.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm.
There's also, if just bringing back my point from Hexblade's Curse, there's a suspicious lack of the word melee anywhere in this feature.
Oh.
So you can actually use a light crossbow for this feature, because that is a one-handed, or a hand crossbow, sorry, rather, which it gives you proficiency with. You can use a hand crossbow with this feature.
That would have fixed so much stuff. I don't know how that got neglected. Like,
my bet is because of that sentence in the lore, others forgo such arms, content to weave the dark magic of that plane into their spellcasting. I think that one line in the lore tells me that it was intentional, that they did not include melee in this feature or in Hexblade's Curse, or weapon in anywhere in Hexblade's Curse. That tells me it was an intentional design decision.
Man, yeah, I guess just with Hexblade, it makes you immediately think, okay, yes, this is going to be the sword warlock. And then you kind of get through it, and it feels like there's kind of a confusion of subclass identity, you know? Trying to make one thing happen and then another. And then I think this next feature just furthers that whole idea. So a Curse Spectre, purple, of course, starting at 6th level, you can curse the soul of a person you slay, temporarily binding it to your service. When you slay a humanoid, you can cause its spirit to rise in the form of from its corpse as a specter. Spectre is a CR1 creature. It has the horrific visage action. So, right? Am I right on that? Spectre has that?
Let me pull that up. I have the monster manual in front of me.
No, sorry, it does not. Life Drain, though.
Life Drain is scary.
Life Drain is fantastic. Even though it doesn't get to use... Oh, man, and now I'm just thinking of that class feature variant thing, if that would work with the Spectre, because that would be terrifying. I was thinking about that. The creature uses your spell save thing. Anyways, so, yeah, right. The statistics for which are in the monster manual. When the Spectre appears, it gains temporary hit points equal to half your Warlock level. So on top of the 22 hit points it already has, it gets those temporary hit points. Roll initiative for the Spectre, which has its own turns. It obeys your verbal commands, and it gains a special bonus to its attack rolls equal to your Charisma modifier. The Spectre remains in your service until the end of your next long rest, at which point it vanishes to the afterlife. Once you bind the Spectre with this feature, you can't use this feature again until you finish a long rest. So my question is, does this fit into either part of the lore of the Hexblade that we've seen so far? Like the Shadowfell or the,
I think what they're going for is that idea that of like those evil weapons that you see in fiction a lot, where once you slay an enemy, it traps the enemy's soul into your service. I think that's what they're going for with this.
Okay.
But here's another thing. Spectres also have incorporeal movement, which means that you can have it scout, and a flying speed of 50 feet, by the way. Yeah. So you can have it scout for you, because this thing lasts until you finish your next long rest. So yes, it does require you to have killed a humanoid, which Mer Hobos will have no issue with whatsoever.
Right.
But like it not only can life drain your opponents with probably a minimum of a +7 bonus to hit, thanks to that charisma bonus to its attack rolls.
Yeah.
And it can scout for you. The only real issue it has is sunlight sensitivity.
Dungeon crawls, that's not really a huge issue. I mean, yeah, you're not able to use this outside.
A locked door that's potentially trapped. Spectre, walk through there. Yep. Tell him, come back. Tell him it's trapped.
I can't help it. I think that any class that gets conjuring to something that's so disposable, like the Echo Knight, like this Spectre right here, people don't think about how hard that ruins the dungeon crawl aspect of the game.
Well, here's the thing. This isn't exactly disposable. You only can use it once per long rest.
Sure.
And once you're at 6th level, like 32, at 6th level, this thing's going to have 25 HP between the HP it gets, the temporary hit points. You can't heal it with most spells because it's an undead. So more than likely, it's going to die relatively quickly. So you do have to kind of protect a little bit if you want to abuse it. But I do agree with your point on the Echo Knight. That is crazy.
Well, I just realized the Spectre is a mimic detector. Damage resistances to acid, bludgeoning, condition immunities, grappled, restrained. What else do we got here? Yeah, this thing is a mimic detector.
Spectre, go check that chest.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay, so a cursed Spectre. There's just that's crazy for scouting. Yeah, super strong.
It's really strong.
Purple. Armor of Hexes. Wow. Your Hex grows more powerful if the target cursed by your Hexblade's curse hits you with an attack roll. You can use your reaction to roll a d6. On a 4 or higher, the attack instead misses you regardless of its roll. What the ever-loving, like...
This is the most 1v1 me, bro, feature I've ever seen.
Like, sure, a lot of stuff gets multi-attack, but, like, it's got to hit you, and you already got a pretty chunky, beefy armor class. On top of that, if it does hit you, you got a 50-50 shot that it just doesn't hit you. Of course it's strong. Of course I'm giving it purple. You might... I don't know. Do you got anything to add to that?
The one reason I don't think this is totally completely busted is that it's tied to your Hexblade's curse. So you get it on one target once per short or long rest. And for that, so once again, this actually makes this more of a boss killer. Especially makes Hexblade's curse more of a boss killer. I don't think this is ultra insane because it's using the same resource that a previous feature. I mean, it's an additive use of that resource, but you can't, at least not until 14th level, use it to cheese an entire fight.
Right. Right.
Because if you do apply this and are dodging one of the boss's attacks per turn, you still have all the minions that the boss is going to command, go get this person, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't protect from that. And it also uses your reaction, which means you can't shield to protect yourself from the minions while you're also using this feature.
Okay.
So it's good. It's very, very good against targets you already want to use Hexblade's Curse on, but I don't think it's insane.
You know, yeah, that's actually, you brought up a good point with shield. I think I would honestly rather use my reaction for shield. Okay,
Shield's
Armor
going
of
to protect you
Hexes.
more than one attack in general.
Yeah, well, okay, so it's here, 50-50 shot that it just misses you. Okay. Master of Hexes.
Also think about, sorry, just one more thing with Armor of Hexes. Another thing to think about is you're using your reaction, which is also tied to your opportunity attacks. It's tied to shield. It's tied to, what's that one Warlock spell that Tiefling also gets?
Hellish Rebuke.
Hellish Rebuke. All of that's tied to your reaction. And if you use this feature and you roll a 1 to 3, you've used your reaction to do nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, okay, so Armor of Hexes, I think, actually, let's move that down. I'm gonna say I think it's blue, but like that
It's one of those that the first time you read it and your brain glosses over reaction, you're like, this thing is insane! How could they possibly print this? And then once you really delve into all the different pieces of reaction, it's actually not that bad.
Yeah, I do kind of think I would rather have shield, but I think they realize, like, at these higher levels, you're probably going to have ditch shield, like you were saying earlier on.
And also, shield is tied to one of your very limited spell slots.
Yeah, that's also very true. Okay. So, Armor of Hexes, I'm going to go on ahead and give it blue, even though I think that it has the potential to be purple. Master of Hexes, though, this is where I feel like the Hexblade just this is pushing this into like absolutely insane territory.
If this is the cheese an entire fight,
yeah,
version of this subclass.
So starting at 14th level, you can spread your Hexblade's curse from a slain creature to another creature. When the creature cursed by your Hexblade's curse dies, you can apply the curse to a different creature you can see within 30 feet of you, provided you aren't incapacitated. When you apply the curse in this way, you don't regain hit points from the death of the previously cursed creature. Now your Hexblade's curse is, you can do it to more than one creature during your short or long rest. And you can do this multiple times. Like,
what also really, really scares me about this is depending on how your DM treats the multiple attacks from Eldritch Blast, there's a potential that if your first ray that has a Hexblade's Curse applied to it kills a creature, there's no action economy tied to this. There's no reaction or bonus action required to move it. So if you kill something with the first blast, you can move it to the second target, to the third target, to the fourth target in one round, depending on how your DM treats the attacks from Eldritch Blast. So, like, there's no action economy to move the Hexblade's Curse. If it dies, you instantly transfer it to something else. No reaction or bonus action required.
oh, no,
That is
no, no.
terrifying.
Oh. Okay. Again, I'm like, this could have all been fixed just by tying it to the melee weapon attack, but like, I guess the lore. You know what? Let's use that to move on to talking about just opinions here. I'm not a huge fan of the Hexblade for multiple reasons. Even more so now that we've had this conversation. I personally, whenever people are trying to play a Gish at my tables, I don't actually allow the Eldritch Knight, and I just let them play Bin's Magus. I think I love that subclass, or I love that class. It gets across everything, and I've never had a person play that and tell me that they were unhappy with it afterwards. Hexblade is one that I look at, and I just can't help it. I look at it, and I'm like, none of this feels like it should be playing the way that we think think it should be. None of the precedents that were set are really getting met, or they're just a bit off. This is one of the only times I will say on my channel, this is a class that I think that needs to get nerfed. Like, and I think that Moon Druid is insanely strong, but I would hate to see it touched. Hexblade is one that I think is insanely strong and needs nerfing. I think for Moon Druid, it's like, yeah, you're investing in that to really be a big sack of hit points, but it doesn't really provide anything that I think is mechanically a big problem, because you only have those 2 uses of Wild Shape. Here, though, we're seeing some things that I think just make the Hexblade perform really way too well in all avenues of the game.
And not in ways that the stated design goals intended.
Before we go much further on this, I know that a lot of people really love this subclass. I know,
and they should. There's a lot of really great ideas, and it's really fun, because rolling huge damage numbers is inherently fun.
But is it healthy for the game?
No.
Exactly.
Flat out no.
That's my big thing. Is I'm not really talking about opinion or anything here whenever I'm like, whenever I'm talking about the actual health of the game. I'm trying to be as objective as I can to really talk about, like, okay, if I feel like something is actually problematic, then it should be called out. Hexblade, especially with the features that we talked about, I think we've done more than enough work in showing that I don't think it hit its, like you said, its stated design goals. And I feel like what's here, though very fun, I'm not going to lie, this subclass looks very, very fun. It is just way too strong. I don't think it's mechanically doing what it was intended to do.
I said it before, Hexblade in 4th edition was my first ever character. Now, what that did extremely, extremely right. In 4th edition, yes, there's problems with it, yes, but they did some things really, really well. And in the Hexblade, they gave you this ranged Arcane Blast, or Eldritch Bolt, I think it was called. And it did good damage, and I think it was like a 1d8, and it felt good. Like you used it because it was useful. But they gave you a special sword that did 1d12. And that design made you think, okay, my sword is better. So if I can get in range for my sword, I should. Whereas this, despite trying to make Pact of the Blade more viable, and yes, if you play this with Pact of the Blade, it will be viable. You're tanky, you're dealing good damage, it's much better for Pact of the Blade than every other Warlock.
Yeah.
What makes me very, very sad is that it's also a much better Eldritch Blaster than every other Warlock,
Yep.
and exponentially more so than it is a better Pact of the Blade user. Everything here tells me it encourages min-maxing in a way that so many other subclasses don't.
Right.
Because it's telling you, hey, you can do cool things with Pact of the Blade, or you can deal like 15 damage per blast of your Eldritch Blast.
Right.
And you crit on a 19 or 20 from range with a higher AC. You're almost impossible to hit. And because you have shield now too. Have fun. And it just, I want to like this so much. I love Gishes. I've wanted Pact of the Blade to be viable for so long.
Yeah.
But this is not the way. And I think it really all starts from that one sentence I pointed out in the lore. Others forego such arms, content to weave the dark magic of that plane into their spellcasting. Why would you do that? Subclasses are awesome because they can be focused. Yes, you're trying to cover a wide variety of possible playstyles with a full class. But with a subclass, you can really narrow in, hit the exact thing you're going for. And I just think the lack of the word melee or melee weapon in this subclass kills it. Because it could be balanced if they'd included those words.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they seem to have made the conscious decision not to.
Whenever this came out in Unearthed Arcana, I wasn't super heavy paying attention to Unearthed Arcana. I think that was still some of my formative...
Jeremy Crawford, I don't know where the tweet is. It was years ago, back when this was first going through UA. And that was before, by the way, Armor of Hexes required a reaction. Because the first version of this they printed in UA, Armor of Hexes did not require a reaction to use. Which they took that feedback, good for them. But Jeremy Crawford, someone asked him a question about Hexblade, just trying to be really specific and explicit. Is this meant to make Pack of the Blade viable? And he said, yes, that is the intention of the Hexblade patron.
Right.
And everyone was like, cool, we're happy to have something that makes Pack of the Blade viable, because everyone wants it to be viable.
Yeah.
But they failed. They made an intentional choice to move away from that, and it fails because of that. It's just too strong, and it doesn't do what people want it to do. Yeah, sorry about all the negativity, because I really want to love this.
No. It's not. I don't think it's. I think people
I'm more apologizing to the audience.
Yeah. Well, I think people that have stuck with the video for this long have seen valid criticism. Very valid. And I know that we're not the only ones that have this opinion, because Hexblade is one that I actually see banned quite often in online forums.
Banned at my tables. I do not allow it.
I see a lot of people ban it, and I hadn't quite formed my opinion until I decided to do this video. And that's whenever I knew, like, you know what, I want to bring on the guy that convinced me that this might be a little nuts and see what I might be missing. I had no idea just how bad Hexblade's Curse could really throw off damage numbers. Because I didn't even think about that synergizing with Hex, with lasting, most of the concentration stuff, other than your smites. And then again, why would you use your smites whenever you can do things like, oh my god, that makes Witch Bolt actually kind of decent.
And Witch Bolt's not a good spell.
No, and it's renowned as one of the worst spells in the game. It's not bad, though, whenever it deals additional bonus equal to your proficiency bonus every time. But
well, it doesn't every time, actually, because it only makes an attack roll once.
Damage rolls.
Oh, wait, no.
That's the damage rolls.
It applies to damage rolls. Never mind, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes Witch Bolts kind of look decent.
Yeah. Okay. So, closing thoughts, though. I really wish, and I think, we've expressed it enough here, really wish Hexblade's, the whole subclass could be killer, and could be more in line and healthier for the game. This is one thing that I will say, this absolutely does need a nerf. This needs an errata. I know that they just errated things to make, Healing Spirit weaker, which deservedly so. It definitely needed that.
That's huge. That's a huge first step.
Yeah.
In showing that they are willing to make changes for the balance of the game and the health of the overall game.
So I would say for the overall, like you were just saying, the overall health of the game, Hexblade's Curse, just go through here, start adding some specifications about melee damage rolls.
Add the words melee and weapon.
Yeah.
Please. Just add and remove that one line in the lore. You don't necessarily need to do that, but just add, please, add the words melee and weapon to some of the features in here. Please.
Okay. So, Hexblade, what do you think I should give it? Because I hate to throw out the opinion of OP rating.
I would call it S++, because it's beyond most S++.
S++. Echo Knight was the first one that I've given an OP rating on my channel. Ever. Echo Knight, because it was printed in an official book, it can absolutely ruin a classic traditional style of playing the game, simply because it has a very expendable resource that it gets as a bonus action. Echo Knight is too absurdly good. Hexblade. I think Hexblade verges so hard on the point of being, like we're saying, S++.
It's the tankiest Warlock. It's the highest damage Warlock. It can do just some crazy things.
Yeah.
it can even scout better than most warlocks that don't take Pact of the Chain.
I think that there's a good argument to be made that this is probably overpowered, and if we're saying that we believe that it needs a nerf, I think it's likely that it is overpowered. Because most of the changes that we would expect in errata are to be like, hey, let's fix some mechanical stuff that's going on, right? Something like this is definitely, this is doing too good. It encourages multi-dipping or multi-class dipping, not for narrative at all, which is what it should be. I really think that multi-class dipping shouldn't just be for mechanical benefits.
I don't let people multi-class at my tables unless it's for a very good narrative reason.
Right. Well, and this right here, Adventurers League players I knew were dipping into Hexblade simply because Hexblade's curse is just that good. I mean, ugh. So, anyways, so that's going to be it for the Hexblade. S++, possibly OP. I've got to call it that. So, Ross, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for
my pleasure
being flexible while I was sick with 2 a.m. Mexican food. Tell me, where can people find you out there on the internet?
Well, I publish on the Dungeon Masters Guild. You can actually find a link to that through my social media on Twitter. I know Taron has that information up, but I'm Outland Advent PR on Twitter. I also have a Patreon that I'm attempting to post on more now that we're in quarantine. And I'm also in a weekly Dungeons & Dragons campaign called FBC 1968, where we are in the world of Control, the video game Control, but set in the 1960s. And we're just playing a whole bunch of random characters. I'm an android. That's just for the fun of being an android.
Right.
So if you want to watch that, the third episode should be coming out probably within the next couple days. But yeah, feel free to join me on Twitter. I also have a Discord, the Outlandish Adventure Productions Discord, that you should also be able to find a link to on my social media. And if it's not, I'll add one. But
cool.
Yeah, just come, join, talk. We have a good time. Ask questions about mechanics, see what I'm working on. The next project I have coming up is the Complete Arcanist's Handbook with Benjamin Huffman, the third in the Complete Handbook series. And we're pretty excited about that. That should be hopefully coming out roughly by the end of June.
Cool. Yeah, I've been talking to you guys every once in a while, hearing just progress that's getting made on that, and I'm stoked to check it out. I need to go through the Complete Handbook series and do something for that on my channel. They're really cool supplements.
Yeah, speaking of Gishes, I wrote a Druid Gish subclass called Circle of the Branch for a Complete Devout Handbook. I am writing and then for Complete Arcanists, I'm writing a new Warlock Gish takes a very different approach from Hexblade. I'm also writing a Sorcerer Gish that I am so excited about.
Nice. Well, all right. That's going to be it for this one. Thank all you viewers for being here. Go check out Ross on all the social medias. I've got my own down in the description below. Do all the YouTube things. Like, comment, subscribe. Appreciate you guys for being here, and I will see you all in the next one.